Hello and welcome to today's video lesson. I'm making a pattern and I'm starting out by using a size 16 Princeton brush, and I'm just going to start mixing a few reds and pinks together to kind of get the color that I'm looking for. So after I dip my brush in the water, I go ahead and mix a few different colors. You don't have to have the same colors that I use, but you can use really whatever colors you have. I recommend using what you have first before going on buying more colors, but I use Winsor & Newton Professional line, and that's Opera Rose. That's Scarlet Lake right there. And the pink I'm mixing in is some Permanent Rose, and I'm just basically mixing to find a pigment that I like, but it's totally preference based. Whatever you like, you can do. And I start with my big flowers, and because I go from largest to small when I'm doing a pattern like this, so I just do the same type of a flower but in different orientations, maybe facing forward, some facing to the side, some facing backward, or not backward but facing upward. This one's facing forward, so I'm just creating petals and leaving some space in the middle so that it's not all just one big blob. Usually when I do petals, I like to do 5 petals, 5 or more, but I don't like to stop at 4 unless it's a specific type of flower that only has 4 petals. And then you can go in and blot toward the center a little bit more paint in, which gives you the value and the variety in your colors. You can also kind of even out some things that you go over some things. As long as it's still wet, you can even it out. So here's my first flower. I'm just quickly sketching it in, if you will. Second one's going to be side facing. So I'm starting with this C shape instead of a full petal, and then I'm going to build my full petals around it. Starting at the top corner, I'm going to make a petal and also leaving some white space in between to give some definition. And I'll create 2 petals on the inside and then another at the end. So there's 4 petals, but then the C shape is also a petal, so that's 5. And again, you can go through and blot some extra paint in toward the center. If you're going to do that, I would blot straight from your tray of paint, whatever paint you're using, so that you get the most color in there. Otherwise, if there's too much water in there, it'll just look really splotchy, which this you can already see is a little splotchy. It's okay though. It's totally fine. So if you're gonna go ahead and blot in some extra paint, you want to make sure you do it while it's still wet. If there's not enough water there, it's not gonna move. So make sure it's wet when you do it. I'm barely making it on one of those petals. It's not fully wet enough.
Mommy.
Hi, buddy. And then I'm just adding a little more to that C shape just to create some interest, something interesting, maybe some volume there. Okay, I'm going to take my paint again, create a little more pigment again, mix some of those similar colors, and then this I'm just doing a few petals and making them go upward, leaving a little bit of white space in there. This is gonna be a petal that's like facing the sky, so a flower that's facing the sky, so you're not going to see the actual inside of it. And I like to have all these different orientations when I'm doing a pattern, or even when I'm doing a bouquet or a wreath. I like to have the different orientation of flowers because that's really what makes it interesting, and yeah, I guess it's just part of my style. But I always do the flowers first. I do largest to small, so I'll start with flowers, then go to leaves, and then go to fillers and branches and things like that. And I just keep painting until the paper's filled, if that's the look that I'm going for. There's a flower over here in the corner. You can't really see it because of my videoing. Apologize for that. But it's basically just another halfway open facing flower that I'm working on right now. Hi, thank you. It's my son. Okay, so here, again, I'm just blotting in the corner. You can't really see it too well right there. But I'm gonna be mixing some greens soon. So for my greens, there I'm starting to. I usually like to mix Winsor Newton olive green with some Perusian blue if I'm going for like a green blue color, like a wintry green, or I'll mix it with some brown if I'm going for more of a rustic kind of a green. Here I'm doing the blue and the olive green, and it's just going to create a very muted, nice green tone that's not super bright, so it's not taking over the piece, but it's kind of acting as a secondary color. I really want the red to pop, so the other colors I'm going to use are going to be slightly more muted. So I like to put little stems on the flowers just to kind of make sure I know where they're going and make sure it's showing what my intention is. And then with a flower that's facing forward, you can put leaves all around it. And for the leaf technique, you're basically making this similar shape to the petal, but it always comes to a point, unless it's a specific leaf that doesn't come to a point. Mostly it comes to a point, and try to make them similar in size, but they don't have to be the same leaves. They can be a little different. They can have a little different shade. Yeah, they can just be whatever you make them to be. Here I think I'm taking a break and grabbing the baby. Oh yeah, okay, there I'm back. So again, mixing a little more color in there with some water, not too much water because you don't want it to be super blotchy. But yeah, just continuing to kind of go around the center flower with some leaves. You can do a stem and then leaves, or you can just do the leaves straight from out underneath. I'm just filling in that part because I didn't particularly love that. And then I do like to blot a little bit of extra paint in at the base sometimes, or at the stem, just because in my mind it's darker at the stem. Maybe not in real life, I don't know. But this is my imaginary garden, so I can kind of do what aesthetically is pleasing to me. And you can do that with your garden too. So this flower, there's gonna be a leaf at the base, and I'm just basically gonna continue to put leaves around all the flowers. So yeah, I'll continue to do that. Okay, so after you've done the leaves and arranged them around the flowers, you can go ahead and start adding some fillers. So this one, I'm just blotting on some, a variety of yellow and brown watercolors. And there's a yellow orchard, there's all kinds of different shades that would work for this, but you can also do blue, you could do brown, you could do a different shade of green. But I'm just creating some contrast here by doing a yellowish color and blotting in, going thick to thin. So at the very tip of it is the thinnest, and I'll create a little stem on the backs of these with a thin brush, just quickly. And that again just kind of takes some more of that negative space away and gives you more visual appeal, things to look at. And basically when I'm doing patterns, I'm just wanting to fill up the white space. So yeah, I'm just going to continue to bring in some branches and different elements like that. This is kind of a blue, indigo blue color, and kind of like a bluish gray. And I'm just kind of taking that white space and filling it in with some branches. And I always do element by element, so I'm not switching back and forth in between my piece to go from, a filler to a branch back to a filler. I do this to keep the colors pure and to just focus on one thing at a time. It's just a lot easier when elements are different colors and you just do piece by piece, element by element, and item by item. And that way, after you've gone through and you've put flowers and fillers and branches and all these different things, you actually have quite a bit on your page to look at and to work with. So I'm taking the same color and I'm just gonna, continue to do these branches. And I'll just keep adding around. Now I'm going to go through and do more water, less pigment. So basically I'm just washing my brush in water and I'm creating these larger leaves. And the reason for this is to, again, take up that white space and just kind of add another element to the pattern without it being standing out. So I kind of want it to fade into the background, not the foreground. And to do that, you're just going to do a wash. So a wash is basically less color and more pigment. And you can even overlap a little bit on the pieces that you've already done. That's okay. This is all very loose, very effortless. And there's definitely a technique in watercolor where you're much more realistic and you're much more attentive to detail. But this style is more of a loose style watercolor, so it's okay to move quickly. It's okay to make strokes. Just let them go however they come out. And that's part of the beauty of this type of style watercolor. It's a little more free, so you're gonna have less technique. Less realistic technique and it's more interpretive. And then with a fine brush, go ahead and do those centers that I talked about. So you don't want to forget the centers, but you do want to do it once the flowers are dry, because it will just become a blotchy mess if you don't. So you really want the centers to be the one thing that's defined. So you'll do that once it's fully dry. And I just go through each of the large flowers. I don't need to do it to the fillers. I don't need to add any detail to the leaves. I'm just doing it to the large flowers, and that kind of seals off my piece and signifies to me that I'm done. When you have a flower that's facing upward, the center, you can kind of come out from the petals, so they're just lines, and you're not having to do the dots at the center and the round center like I did in the other ones. In this side facing one, you do see the full center, so you do want to really bring that detail in. So I just speckled some dots in, do some lines coming out of it, and then some dots again at the top. And I'm just using black here, but you can use brown, you can use a dark blue, you can use any neutral color you'd like. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.